Again, John, I'm going to hand this one over to you because a fantastic game has now arrived on MetaQuest 3. You're enthused about it and wish to share that enthusiasm with the world.
Yes, allow me to talk about this.
Yes.
CSmash VRS, the VR reimagining of Cosmic Smash for the Sega Dreamcast and Naomi arcade board. And thanks to one of our viewers, I actually have the Naomi cart as well. So I appreciate
Wow.
that. It's pretty cool.
And I've got the Naomi.
I'm trying to get you've got the original Naomi. The Naomi 2 is having technical issues. I never got that to go. CSmash VRS was awesome. Came out on PSVR 2 last year. It was my probably among, if not, I think it was my favorite, most, just like the game I played the most that was an original VR game. GT7 I maybe put above it in terms of just, but that's basically an existing game that just has awesome VR support. Where CSmash, I mean, tennis games in VR, they freaking rule. They feel great. There's that table tennis game as well on the Oculus Quest that I love, and Meta Quest that I love. And this is like, that scratches a similar itch, but it's more, it's got that super vibey feel of Cosmic Smash, which is kind of like, I guess it's in that same vein as like the original Res. Well, there is only Res, but yes, where it's kind of like spacey, these kind of like very simple shapes and lots of geometry, but you're like basically playing, it's not exactly tennis, it's more like squash, I guess. But there's like, you can either play against other players and you're trying to take out the shapes behind them, or you play the single player stuff, which is like, dealing with lots of different patterns across the field and trying to angle the ball to hit those patterns and stuff. But it just feels awesome. The combination of the music, the VRness, I loved it. And I liked it on PSVR 2 a lot. Problem is, of course, PSVR 2, it's wired. My space back here is somewhat more limited than I would have liked. So some of that's just dealing with your own personal house setup, but being able to take the Quest and just like go out on the patio or down into the living room, it really sort of frees it up, if you know what I mean. And it felt like I could run back and forth freely within that space. Like out on the patio, I was able to actually, I could play just by physically running back and forth, which felt really cool. In a way, it's just,
I would love to see some paparazzi video of that, John.
Oh no, that would be bad. But I'm really happy that it's on the Quest, and it's a perfect Quest sort of game in the sense that, like, and one of the things I love about it is you play a few rounds, you take off the headset, you set it down, you come back later, like, I got 10 minutes, you just put the headset back on, and it's like a handheld gaming system. You just hop in and out
like
of VR
Tetris
whenever you want.
That way.
Yeah. And as a result, it's just, I feel like it's the perfect format for it. And actually, a lot of the PSVR 2 stuff's been coming over. I also have been recently messing with Humanity as well, which was another game I loved on PSVR 2 last year. That's out on the Quest as well now. And again, because there's no wire and it's standalone, it makes it a lot easier to sort of move around. You're like a giant within that sort of city block environment, guiding your peoples. It just works really well. Although, I mean, I got into some arguments over some people were very angry about the way I talked about PSVR 2 recently.
I did see
Holy
that.
moly, they were mad. And it's like,
bizarre.
Listen, I still like the PSVR 2. I think it's a cool piece of kit. It's just, for me personally, like the benefits of the Quest, like it's transformative in terms of how I use VR.
There is an interesting debate to be had here because, as was pointed out in that tweet thread, the definition of bias now has sort of migrated into something much larger than what it actually means.
Yeah, exactly.
And rather stupidly, people are interpreting bias to mean a preference of one over the other.
Exactly.
When one can be objectively better than the other. It doesn't matter, you're biased. That's just nuts.
Exactly.
It's like,
what's the point?
Yeah.
It's not like PSVR 2 doesn't have some advantages, right? But some of those, it's a trade-off thing. Like the screens, for instance, it uses OLED screens, so you get better black levels, and it can do the HDR. Right. The trade-off, though, is that when you use OLED in VR, you can't do the essentially strobing black frame insertion, kind of like low persistence stuff to the degree you can on an LCD, because it impacts the brightness too greatly. And if you're trying to do HDR as well, so basically the PSVR going for that high dynamic range presentation means that the motion clarity sucks. It looks like a normal flat panel. There's tons of persistence blur, versus the Quest, which is basically, they use LCDs, but they're able to drive it in a way that you basically get CRT quality clarity. It is perfect motion. There is no blur in motion, which looks phenomenal in VR. And since you move your head all the time, to me, that matters a lot. That completely changes the presentation. But obviously that also means you don't get the black levels. It's LCD, so black areas are going to glow. There's black backlight glow. So it's kind of like, do you want motion clarity or do you want the brighter HDR in the black levels? And I can, normally I would prefer both, and you can do that on OLED screens, on monitors, TVs, but I think just the way it works in VR, I've yet to see any OLED based VR headsets that can do the same motion clarity that you get with the Quest. But honestly, the Quest 3 is just absurd in terms of motion clarity. Like, it's really the best I've ever seen.
That's awesome.
I think that is awesome on there. Also, again, pancake lenses. I mean, it's just what a difference that makes for me, at least. Like, it's just that edge.
Yeah, these are objective things. They're like literally researched things that people put a lot of money and time into. It's not a bias. It's a technical spec that's better. It's fine to prefer that too. Like, John, just ignore it all.
It's interesting to hear like how, and I understand if you spend a lot of money on this stuff, you're gonna be passionate about it. But I mean, I think in my collection, I have like 9 VR headsets now. I've used a lot of VR headsets. I spent a lot of time in VR. I like VR a lot. And I do think they all have their pros and cons. There is no perfect headset. My only point was that the Quest 3 is probably the closest we've gotten to that. It still has its flaws. It is definitely not perfect. But, you've got to give and take. Like, if you're looking at the more traditional wired style VR, although it has wireless coming, I mean, I would say the Pimax Crystal massively outperforms PSVR 2, but guess what? It's like 3 times the price. So it should. That's the wired headset right now. It's got a much wider FOV. It's got super good black levels, way higher resolution, better lenses, like all of that stuff. But that's the sit down. This is a big, heavy thing on your head kind of experience. So again, sacrifices. I just think, for my money, the Quest 3 is just the most flexible and closest thing to the best product on the market. And I do think wireless PC play as well. Like, the native games are amazing, but wireless PC play just pushes it over the edge. It's just like, because it's so easy to use, like, there's less setup to use wireless PC playback than it is to plug in the PSVR 2 and get it going.
That's crazy.
I'm not kidding. It's that easy. It's literally just click a button and you're just like in, and it's nuts. Like, I cannot believe how seamless it is.
Yeah, I think we should highlight here that you are actually endorsing a streaming video solution.
I'm endorsing a streaming solution that uses an LCD.
Yeah.
It's an LCD based streaming system, and I'm like, I'm endorsing this. That should say a lot. I don't.
It is essentially
That's amazing,
ruling
John.
out your existing biases.
Exactly. It's this is the opposite of what I like. OLED on the PSVR 2. Physical media is available for some PSVR 2 titles. Like, there's so many reasons why I would normally prefer the PSVR 2 and want to prefer it, but in reality, I'm basing this on just the actual product experience, and I mean, that's just how it is. I think the Quest 3 is better.
Fair enough.
But again, that doesn't mean I hate the PSVR 2. I still like it.
It doesn't automatically mean that the PSVR 2 is rubbish.
It does not. The PSVR 2 is a great headset still. Of the traditional wired type of headsets, it is absolutely on par or superior. I think it is actually better than, like, say, like a Valve Index, for instance, which is an older VR headset. It's that type of headset, but it's a bit better than that. But that's, again, there's so many different headsets. There's so much to evaluate there, and there's still a ways to go. Like, I would love a much more, like, field of view. What we talk about isn't the same as, like, the amount of visible space, like, in terms of the coverage. Like, you still have the goggle effect on pretty much all headsets.
Right.
And in fact, actually, I didn't mention it yet, but I did very briefly sample an Apple Vision Pro. I do not own one of those. I will not own one because it's insanely expensive. I can't afford that. and it's not actually that interesting to me because it's not really a gaming headset, but it does look great, but it's actually got like a slight softness to it that the Quest 3 does not have. And it has the same issue as PSVR 2. It uses micro OLED screens and it has tons of persistence blur.
Okay.
Interesting.
So it looks so good, like it does, but like I feel like it's almost like slightly out of focus intentionally to like make it so you can't detect any pixels or sharpness in the edges. So it's kind of a softer presentation, yet still noticeably very high res. But between that and the persistence blur, I was like, there's definitely some weirdness to it. So
Weird. Yeah.
Okay, CSmash rather. I did read it's going 2D as well.
Oh, that's
Is
right.
that John?
They announced a 2D version. So, I mean, the original is obviously an arcade/Dreamcast game, right? So it makes sense that it could be playable in 2D, and it seems like that's happening. So,
Okay.
yeah.